Hey guys, Sean here. Welcome to the F1 Word and to some race reaction for the 2021 Sao Paulo Grand Prix. What a bloody race that was. Oh my days, I love this season. It has been so good. So much better than Mexico. I don't think anyone will doubt that for a second. Absolutely fantastic. We had, I think, a fair bit of action through the field. We didn't see an awful lot of it because all the focus was naturally at the front. Side-by-side stuff with Lewis Hamilton and Max Verstappen, a little bit of controversy. And it isn't even over, although I think it's probably going to be a case of a fine. We'll talk about that in just a few. Hope you're all good in the chat and enjoyed that one, like I say. So buzzing after that one. I'm so excited today. I don't know why. Probably because I just watched a great race and we've still got 3 to come in 3 countries that... 2 of which we haven't been to before, so going to be interesting. Let's kick things off with the race result before I bring in today's guest. We've got Lewis Hamilton taking a much needed victory. I felt today that he had to win this, and he did win it from 10th on the grid today. Obviously sprint yesterday from the very back after being disqualified. Unbelievable weekend, unbelievable. One of his probably greatest weekends, I would say. Second place, Max Verstappen, pretty good damage limitation for his championship. Valtteri Bottas in third. Sergio Perez, fourth place, did get fastest lap at the end. Started fourth, finished fourth. I feel like Perez did more than that, but there we go. Still pretty big points for Red Bull. Fifth for Leclerc, sixth for Carlos Sainz. Pierre Gasly in seventh for AlphaTauri. It's eighth for Esteban Ocon, ninth for Fernando Alonso. That is so interesting. AlphaTauri and Alpine still tied on points in the constructors. They're 102, 103 or something last time. Now they're at about 112 each. It is so good, that fight. I'm way too invested in it. Lando Norris P10. Not great for McLaren. 11th for Sebastian Vettel. 12th for Kimi Raikkonen. 13th for George Russell. 14th for Giovinazzi. 15th for Yuki Tsunoda. 16th for Nicholas Latifi. 17th for Mazepin. Schumacher, the last of the class of 5 finishers. And then we've got Ricciardo and Lance Stroll, your 2 retirees. Let's just hop straight into the chat and say a very good evening to, let's go alphabetically, Jonty. It's been ages, mate. How you doing?
But hey, how you doing? And yeah, what a race! Even not just at the front, we had it everywhere. It was fantastic.
What a season as well. I mean, I can't be the only one that doesn't want this to end. I can't be. It's been absolutely phenomenal. And good evening again to Stuart. 3 in a row, your own triple header.
Good to be back. So yeah, I was nearly a bit late. I was wearing odd socks, so I got called to the stewards on the way over, but it's all getting sorted out.
I'm going to warn you now, if you're on Twitter, you'll know he's in one of those moods this weekend. So I don't know what he's going to come out with. We will just talk very quickly about the stewards for anybody who's not caught up. Lewis Hamilton or somebody from Mercedes has been summoned, undid his seatbelts on the, what do we call it, the cool-down lap or something like that. When he went to collect that Brazil flag, he's been summoned to the stewards where Mercedes have spent 99% of their weekend, and we're waiting for a decision. The general feeling seems to be, though, Stuart, that it's going to be a fine. At least Anthony Davidson, saying on Sky that he spoke to, I think he said Ron Meadows, and the feeling is it'll be a reprimand and a fine.
Yeah, that's what I'm hearing too, and I think that's consistent with what's come before. But still, what a long weekend it's been for Lewis Hamilton and Mercedes.
It's just been a weekend of refreshing Twitter as well, hasn't it? It's just all I've done. I've got repetitive strain injury. It's ridiculous. We'll start, as we always do, with the top 2 teams. So Mercedes and Red Bull, massive win today. I said in the intro, Jonty, that I felt that this was because people were talking about if he can get third, if he can get second. I felt like this was a must win today for him. And what a drive to nail it. And in such... I can't sum it up. Just I think one of his best drives today in Formula One. Maybe some recency bias, maybe.
Definitely his best drive since Singapore 2018, that qualifying lap. But before that, Silverstone 2008? I mean, obviously he's had lots of great drives, but this, like you say, this was pretty much make or break. If he couldn't win this, that's miles more pressure on the title. So he showed his class. That's all you can say.
I think that's exactly it, isn't it, Stuart? His class. It's what you expect from a 7-time world champion back against the wall all weekend, really. But it's not. I mean, we talk about P10 to P1, but really, as they said over Team Radio, then it's a 25 place penalty this weekend that he had to take. So 20th yesterday in the sprint, came through to 5th place, which even Martin Brundle in commentary said he didn't expect or thought was ambitious. And then 10th to 1st today. I mean, yes, he's got a very nice new Merc engine in the back of that car, Stuart, probably helping you out massively, but still can't take anything away from that drive.
Yeah, I mean, he had a lot thrown at it this weekend. He already had that engine penalty, and then he had the other wing infringement thrown at him. And some weekends or some other drivers, it may get into that head down, just negative mindset. But he just decided to turn it around and push as hard as he could, and he maximized everything, every session. Can't fault him, really. And I know, a lot of people are saying, yes, he's got a new engine. Yes, that car's a lot faster in a straight line than the other ones. The car is very well set up for Brazil, and he's got a fresher engine that's actually tuned for the slightly shorter life it's expected to have. Nonetheless, he did make up 25 places over 1.3 race distances, which
95 laps.
There you go. Which is a hell of an achievement, whichever way you swing it. And he really had to fight for it.
Yeah, I mean, we're going to get onto that incident in a minute, but the flip side of that, though, for Verstappen is led for so long in that race. He seemed pretty chill towards the end, but there's got to be some frustration in there that he led for so long, all right, against the rub of the green, if you like, or the run of the green. Is it rub of the green or run of the green? Something to do with green. That'll do. For just against what we were all expecting. So he left for so long. So there's got to be some frustration to lose the win. But from a championship point of view, Jonty, just in that context, second place today is actually a pretty decent result for Max. Because if that Mercedes of Bottas was quicker today, if Bottas had 3 seconds behind at the end, if Bottas catches him and passes him, it could have been a huge dent. So to drop, in air quotes, just 7 points is probably actually the best he could have done today. A little bit like, I can't remember what race it was. It was a similar one just not too long ago, where maybe for Hamilton in Mexico, where second place was probably the best he could have done.
Yeah, in any title fight, you've got to be making sure that if there's a place where you're weak, you've still got to be maximising your possible result. And that's definitely what Max has done today. Quicker than Bottas. And although, actually, now think about it, both of them have had their wingman do a lot of good jobs. I'm calling them both wingmen. The number 2 drivers doing important jobs today. Bottas got a little bit lucky with the virtual safety car for his pit stop. But Checo taking that point from fastest lap at the end, he didn't have long to do it. So that's all helping both of the title fights, both of the lead drivers for the title fight. I think that's what I've enjoyed most today, the fact that it was 2 complete teams fighting, not just the 2 drivers. We rarely see that.
That's a great point, because we had Checo asking for the DRS cheekily, didn't we? From Verstappen, like Max was going to slow down. But, I completely agree. It was nice to see the 2 teams, not just the fact they were battling, but the fact they could. I mean, Perez has really got it together in the last few races. Christian Horner saying since he was able to take the car in the direction he wanted to with setup, he's improved, and I think we can see that, and that is making such a difference in this fight, because it's actually made Red Bull constructors contenders now, which I would argue they maybe weren't before, because Bottas was a little bit more consistent. So I'm totally with you, Jonty. I'm loving not just Hamilton versus Verstappen, but the intra-team battle. It's such a good season. It's best since 2012. It gives me 2003 vibes. Sorry, I'm just loving this season. But we've got to come to the moment of the race that's got everyone talking. I look at chat and I plead with you with my eyes. You got to see me like, please be nice. There was a moment at turn 4. Lewis Hamilton ran the outside of Max Verstappen, both very late on the brakes. Heart in mouth stuff, so close to contact, both off the track. The stewards had a look at it. They noted it. They didn't really investigate. They had a look and felt there was no further action necessary, no investigation needed. A lot of people feel differently. Christian Horner, surprise, surprise, and I know this will shock everybody, feels that was fair racing, and that if he'd have been in Mercedes' position, he would have asked the question to the FIA, but wouldn't have expected anything. Toto Wolff, surprise, surprise, thinks that should have been probably at least a 5-second penalty. I'll tell you mine straight away before I cop out and leave it to you and Stuart, Jonty. But my feeling for that when I watched that first time was penalty. I don't know if the FIA take into consideration the championship fight, which, by the way, they shouldn't when it comes to the rules, but I don't know if they do. But I don't see how that's really much different to Norris on Perez in Austria, and was it Perez on Leclerc twice in Austria as well? He's been forced off the track. Both of them have gone off. Max has gone sort of... I'll tell you what it reminds me of, actually, John C. Rosberg 2016. That move, for me, was a slam dunk penalty, and nothing came of that because, of course, it was two drivers from the same team, and usually the FIA tend to... Yeah, in Austria. What did I say?
No, you just said 2016. I was just checking. That was
sorry. There were a few, weren't there, of close moments in 2016. That was how it felt for me. I thought that was a penalty because he's sort of pushed him off track. He's gone off himself. But from a Lewis Hamilton point of view, doesn't really matter now, does it? Because he's won the race. But what's your take on that, Jonty? I'll try and get my thoughts together a bit. I'll go to my notes. I made a few.
It's hard not to call it a penalty, especially when you saw it from the overhead view. You know, Lewis was ahead coming into the corner. Obviously, Max comes back a bit due to being on the tighter line. But by the rules, Max has to give him space because of how far alongside he is. So if Lewis is no longer on the track, Max has pushed him off. It's a very, very clear black and white thing for me. But not even actively investigate it. It was noted and then no investigation necessary. It's like, hang on a minute, that's not right. It should be at least investigated, regardless of whether you think it's going to be a penalty or not. They should at least be looking at it properly, not just, discarding it out of hand. That's what bugs me.
I think it would be easier to not accept it, but understand it if there had at least been an investigation. I liken it to a little bit as well to what we saw in COTA between Raikkonen and Alonso. Obviously, Raikkonen got the position round the outside. The stewards let it go, but the stewards let that go because Alonso had forced him off track, had forced Raikkonen off track. So they said, well, you forced him off and he's gone and floored it and kept his position, which he's going to do. And we're not going to penalise him because we'd have to penalise you as well, basically, was my take on it, or how I saw it anyway. Just to let you know, before I come to you, Stuart, about that incident, and we'll discuss it a bit more, obviously. Decision, breaking news, 50? No, it isn't. It's a €5,000 fine for Lewis Hamilton, with a further €20,000 suspended until the end of 2022. Just to confirm, that's not suspended in the air or anything like that. It just... behave, otherwise you're going to get that 20,000 on top of it. So no sporting penalty, if you want to put it that way, for Lewis Hamilton for undoing his seatbelts. It's a €5,000 fine. It was after the race. I think it was an international sporting code breach, so I'm not surprised that wasn't a sporting penalty. I agree with that one. But the incident, Stuart, what was your take on all that between Hamilton and Verstappen?
Yeah, there's a number of things going on here. I think the most glaring thing is sort of what Jonty sort of finished with there, is that there was no investigation at all, which from the point of the stewards booth, even just to cover your own backs and to say, yeah, we looked at it, don't come for us. You do an investigation. And I think to make it clear, like the difference between sort of the investigation and sort of it being looked at, investigation, they start looking at telemetry, they look at all the camera angles they can and sort of make an actual assessment of what happened. And I think it's clear that the Verstappen onboard wasn't hooked up to the live feed. Not all the onboard cameras are hooked up to the live feed. Some of them need to be downloaded after the race. And seeing as we saw none of it in any of the replays, I don't think they had that available to them, which was a shame and weird, actually, that wasn't one of the cameras they used. Nonetheless, it did kind of send a very bizarre message not to look at it, especially when earlier in the weekend, when they'd spent a lot of time looking into both Hamilton and Verstappen, they did very detailed explanations over the decisions over how they came to their decisions over the penalties they both got for the wing thing and the touching of the wing thing, which I thought were very well explained and made me think, okay, fair enough. I understand how you came to this conclusion. So just to do this on the Sunday, when we know they've hit each other repeatedly this season and that everyone goes ballistic about it, was bizarre. In terms of it being a penalty, it's very hard not to call it a penalty or a reprimand or something, because Verstappen ran incredibly wide. He ran at least 2 car lengths width beyond the track limit. So you can't say he was forced off because Hamilton was on his outside. So it was a very poor defensive move. Even if he'd, forced Hamilton wide but stayed within the lines, I probably would have been a bit like, yeah, okay, whatever. But the fact that he just drove straight off the track as his method of defense,
Yeah.
it strikes me as, well, that's not on. That's not how you defend. That's not how you race. So it just very strange that was just left in the air. And after several races in a row where the FIA have been sort of doing a lot of investigation of people pushing other people wide, the only reason he didn't actually touch Hamilton is because Hamilton avoided the collision. If Hamilton had continued on his line, he would have been hit by Verstappen. And what if this was at Cops, etc. So, yeah, I don't know. It's very strange to me, all of this.
Yeah. The one thing I did see some people saying on Twitter trying to argue is that, he just understeered a bit wide. I'm like, excuse me? Those tyres are 3 laps old.
Mm-hmm.
He did not understeer wide.
Well, not even that, though, is it? It's like, I don't see how... It's quite difficult, actually, because I don't see how anyone could say he understeered wide anyway, because we haven't seen the onboards, we haven't seen the steering input. If there's not much steering input there, which I'm not convinced there is, then I think that's a penalty. But then we might get the onboard, and it might be that he's full lock. I don't think he'd be full lock. It certainly doesn't look like it. It's really weird to me that footage isn't available yet. I'm sure it will become available at some point, but I'd be very intrigued to see what that... It's about the steering input, if you follow what I'm saying. I don't want to go absolutely 100% that's a penalty, but if that steering input is what I suspect it is, then that's a penalty as it should have been for Rosberg in 2016. And it's another one of those things as well. It's Hamilton versus Verstappen, so it's just got everybody really angry and wound up. If this was Giovinazzi versus Latifi, no one would give a toss, and the FIA would probably have handed out a penalty for it. It's a very weird one. It's the fact it wasn't investigated is odd to me. We've all said that, and that's agreement. I've seen chat saying a few similar things as well. But is it hard racing? I'd argue hard racing. You got to keep it on the track would help, but it's like you say, Stuart. He just sort of doesn't. It's almost like he doesn't try to make the corner. I'm sure he does to a point, but there's nothing wrong with squeezing an opponent, is there, at all? That's part of hard racing, but it's just, where do you draw the line? And apparently that was okay, which I think is going to add a really nice bit of spice to the rest of this season, because I'm pretty sure Hamilton's one of those drivers, which we've seen so many times through the years, who will just sort of, in the back of their mind, be like, okay, noted, like we saw turn 1 in Imola. Okay, fine, that's what we're doing. That's okay. We'll make sure we're both doing the same. But it'd be interesting to see if the stewards come to a different conclusion. Not in some kind of conspiracy way, but if it's a track specific thing, if they look at turn 4 and think, well, they've both gone in really deep. I don't know. I think penalty is what I would have given that. And I'll say it just for the sake of shutting people up. I'd say the same if Hamilton had done that to Verstappen in that corner. Yeah. It's a penalty, no doubt about it. But stewards felt not, for whatever reason. I worry that stewards don't want to get involved in the title fight. But also, I'll be honest, Jonty, I don't want them to get involved unless they absolutely have to. So it's...
Well, yeah, that's true. I mean, the difficult thing is that if they bothered to do a full investigation, then they'd be going into the steering input, the braking input, and all that kind of stuff. And without this investigation and the data, it's very hard to tell, would Lewis have been able to make the corner, on that line at that speed, or would he have still gone wide, regardless of where Max was? would Max have been able to make the corner if he'd put more steering input, or was he going too fast? Did he brake too late? It's the whole point of as we keep saying, it's the whole point of the investigation is so that they can look at these things and make an objective call rather than a subjective one, because it's all on the data. And the fact that they haven't just leads to people arguing and leads to the dumpster fire that Twitter becomes every race.
Yeah. I like that's.
Yeah, what if you're in that kind of position? Why would you open yourself up to criticism and fire when you can just do your job?
Yeah, because if they investigate it and then they go through all the telemetry, as you've been saying there, Jonty, and then they're like, well, no, everything's fine. Then you sort of go, oh, well, it looked a bit off, and maybe another day we would have seen a penalty. But if they've got all the data and information and they've investigated thoroughly, then you kind of accept it a bit more, don't you? I think that's the point, and that's what's really getting me. But I'll do some super chats in a second. I will say I'll come to you in chat for your opinions on this one as well. I'm gonna be a teacher about it. I'm going to be like, if you're not respectful in the chat, I'm just going to block you, because I'm not doing this anymore, because I'm just about sick of toxicity in this fan base. It's ridiculous. It's been all weekend on Twitter. It's pathetic. If you can't behave, I'm pointing at you, like really seriously pointing at you. It'll just be blocked because I'm not doing it. So I'll read respectful comments out. You don't have to agree. You can completely disagree. You can say we're wrong and you can tell us why. But if you're going to get abusive, you're just going to get blocked. Let's see super chats. Thank you very much to Charles Edward Cheese. You're a legend, mate. Says, ladies and gentlemen, the Goku has blessed us with ultimate performance today. So this is what it takes to receive a Driver of the Day award. Sheesh. P.S. Happy days and mum's the word. Also, shout out to Valtteri Bottas 77. Interesting point, actually. It does seem to take a lot for Lewis Hamilton to get Driver of the Day, doesn't it? Andre says, thank you very much, mate. Says, Lewis knew what Max was going to do. He's learnt. And I've lost that. Where have you gone? Andre, I've lost you. There you go. He's learned, and it's down to his skill, and they didn't touch. Max lost respect today. That weaving as well. We'll talk about the weaving, hopefully, if I remember. Phil as well, thank you very much. Says, Horner is a cheat. No investigation. That dinner for the stewards must have been pretty nice. Well, 55,000 euros they've got to spend on lunch now, so they're going to be happy. Suffering Addict says, anyone who still thinks Max has a chance of the title is fooling themselves. With this car and form, Hamilton will easily win this. Anyway, great stream. Thank you very much, mate. Keep moving. Phil says, thank you again, mate. It says Horner has changed his tune since Silverstone, eh? And Phil also says Verstappen should have the book thrown at him. Thank you very much, mate, for your contributions. Scott says 24 places, technically, for Lewis Hamilton. There you go. Elliot says, so is Lewis cracking under pressure then? Not today. I wouldn't have thought so. Elliot, it'll be interesting to see who's going to crack under pressure. It's going to be tense. These next three races are going to be so tense. But I kind of feel like Hamilton also almost has nothing to lose at the minute. So we'll see how that goes. And Raz, thank you very much. Oh, look what we've done, Stuart. It says, Sassy Massey returns. Great drive by the Mercedes and Red Bull Racing to deliver it as a controversy-free, thoroughly enjoyable race at the front. One of the best. Thank you very much. And one's just coming from Raz as well. Max's response to black and white flag warning turned me off. I think he is a bit pompous in that regard. Tell them I said hello. Needs to be more diplomatic, in my opinion. Thank you very much for all your contributions. And if it is your first time here, you in chat know what's coming. $500 donation from Charles Edward Cheese. Let's see if we can get those likes to 500 as well. So please do drop a like. Lots of people watching. 1,700. So let's see if we can get to 500. We should be able to do it for Charles. Come on, it's just do it for Charles. If nothing else, just do it for him, because he will pester you all evening in the chat until you do. Let's see what you're saying in the chat as well. I'll stroll up a little bit.
There's just one point I remembered that someone said to me on Twitter I'd forgotten about. The best outcome for that incident would have been for the stewards to instruct Max to give the place back, give the place up, and then they carry on fighting. So there's no time penalty involved. You know, we're still getting the fight on track. It can still be done on track, like Canada should have been.
I forget I've not got a camera. I just grinned at the screen like like what Jonty said. Nobody can see it. Did you want to say something, Stuart? Sorry.
No, I mean, yeah, I mean, I agree. I think both Verstappen and Red Bull knew full well that Hamilton would be gone up the road if they did that. So we were just clinging on to pure hope, I think. And it paid off. Well, until they got overtaken.
Jamie says, settle it with a 1v1 on Rust. I don't know what Rust is, and you're going to tell me off now. I assume it's a game of some sort. Anyway, find it strange that Max missed the corner by so much, says Not Aiden. Love this racing this season, says Yash. Just can't understand why they didn't investigate, says Ross. Max is weaving all over the place on the straights. That's Jeffrey got a black and white flag for that, as the super chat said. That's something they seem to be starting to clamp down on a little bit more, don't they? So, and I think rightly so, because it's, if there's nothing there, it's not necessarily dangerous, but it doesn't look great, does it? And I think the FIA don't like it, and they are clamping down. They started in F2, really clamping down. It seems to be coming to F1 now. So, not that Max gave a damn about the black and white flag. I think they should start investigating all incidents. There's a Formula One news squad. I think the problem with investigating all incidents is they'd never get to the ones they needed to. There's just something every single race, isn't there? But fair enough. Bottas's fault. Damn it, Valtteri, says JVH. People here talking about penalty or not. I'm just happy to see a competitive season between Max and Lewis. Completely agree, Rosh, but conversation needs to be had, mate. It's unbelievable this season. I just don't want it to end. Anon says, "Oh Lord, Jonty is here." He knows you. Something's going to come out. And let's have a couple more on the penalty itself. Forever A Zone says, objectively, Hamilton was ahead going into the corner. Max braked late, went off the track, and exited the corner in the lead. That's going off track and gaining a lasting advantage regardless. That's the thing, isn't it? Lasting advantage. Did he gain position? Did he keep position? That's the argument there. Let's be honest, there's nothing to investigate. The result will be the same. Do you know, JJDD, you're right, but also, if Max had been given a 5-second penalty, Valtteri Bottas was only 3 seconds behind. Now, I don't know. I feel like Max was backing off towards the end, just to keep everything in check, make sure the car was okay, look after things. He's going to need that engine mileage towards the end of the season. But if you take it on just the result itself, 5 seconds puts Verstappen third. So, yeah, but like I said, I think Verstappen, is that your take? Do you feel like that, Jonty? Do you feel like that 3-second gap would have been much more between him and Bottas if he just... It just felt like he was managing things at the end of it.
Yeah, he realised it was done, so he just held position. I think he may well have actually backed off a bit to get some clear air and a big charge on the batteries to go for the fastest lap himself in the last couple of laps. Yes, he's on all the tyres, but we've seen him do it before.
Just saw what Ant Davis said. There was a front camera and they cut away to the rear just before the corner. That's Black Hawk. So I saw that one on, live. He was waiting for that to come through, and we're all waiting for that picture where it didn't really happen. No penalty. Austria 2019, same thing. But then, as I said earlier, Norris got a penalty in Austria for the same thing this year, and Perez got 2, I think, for the same thing on Leclerc this year as well. So it's the consistency thing again. How many times, Stuart? I don't know what I've said that made Charles Edward Cheese say shot o'clock, but you need to take a shot for that one. It's consistency from the stewards.
Yeah. Sorry, I missed the very beginning of your message there because it cut out for a bit. But you popped back in when you're talking about taking shots.
I'm just drinking. What can I say? No, just somebody in chat there saying I've lost the message now, saying there was no penalty in Austria 2019 between Verstappen and Leclerc. But we did also see penalties for Perez and Norris in Austria for a very similar thing. So it's the consistency thing with the stewards.
Yeah, I mean, and
very
that kind of thing
tracks,
has happened on, several occasions for several different similar incidents between them, and they did do a lot of work about 10 years ago in trying to sort of firm up consistency from the stewards, but they do have these kind of weird elements like this, and if they're going to do this, I think they need to sort of clear it up more formally, I think, in the event notes, the way they do with track limits and stuff. Obviously they can't foresee what kind of behavior the drivers are going to do come the race, but if it's going to vary from track to track, I think they need to make that clear. If not, I think they need to make clear what is and isn't allowed when attacking, defending, and racing with each other. Otherwise you get days like this when everyone gets either very confused or very angry at one person or another.
We'll talk about Saturdays and Fridays stuff, Should we call it that? When we get to waffle and Q&A a little bit later, there'll be some questions about that one, but we'll wrap it up on the top two there for now. We will come back to it later if we've got some time, because I want to get through everybody as usual. So Bottas and Perez, got to have a word about them. Bottas was instructed to let Hamilton go, basically stopped on the start-finish straight. So like you were saying, Jonty, the team game, we're seeing it this season, absolutely fantastic. I love that it's part of it. Always adds a bit more spice, doesn't it? But pitted twice, pitted once on the virtual safety car, which helped him out big time. Also did on lap 41. He did say at one point, though, which is interesting, Jonty, I think we threw away an easy one too. So I think he was wanting the one stopper today, wasn't he? But the general feeling seems to be that one stopper was not really going to work. The tyres weren't going to hold up for that. There'd be a lot of management at the end, and that's just going to allow Red Bull to come back at them.
I wasn't even sure it was in reference to a one stop. They both had a set of brand new mediums available. If they'd have gone along on the middle stint up to about that 51-ish, you've got 75% less fuel load, and they did 26 laps on the mediums at the start of the race. Think about the extra pace you'd have out of them, and the track and air temperatures getting a little bit cooler towards the end of the race. They would have had massive pace. But that does also then rely on doing it on track, which Lewis had to do anyway, but it would have made it a bit easier, I'd have thought. It depends how much time they would have lost in making that middle stint longer.
Do you think they were a little bit forced into Bottas' stop because the VSC came out? It gave them an easy, cheap stop, didn't it? Because I felt like they might leave him out longer and put him on a softer compound, like the medium, towards the end, a little bit more towards the end, so he could go more racy. But with the VSC, you've got to take that opportunity, haven't you, when it crops up if you can?
Yeah, possibly. Because you think with the VSC stop, he probably saved about 12 to 14 seconds, which is huge.
Yeah, I just have a look through my notes on Bottas. I've not got much else really. Obviously Verstappen got him off the line. That was it really. Not much. Went wide at turn 4, didn't he, as well, Stuart? So a bit of a sloppy opening lap, and that. I mean, the race might have been easier, actually, Stuart, if Bottas had been able to keep that lead, because he could have backed him up and Hamilton would have been on them quicker and they could have been in control. But Red Bull very much had control of strategy early on and actually made some great shouts. So just disappointing, if I'm honest. Not trying to be a Mercedes fanboy or anything like that, but I'd like to have seen Bottas be a bit more aggressive today, because Verstappen really gave him everything in turn 1, didn't he?
Yeah, I mean, after the first lap, it was like, Bottas, you kind of had one job to do, and that was just to keep the Red Bulls at bay for as long as possible, and it just fell apart in the first 4 corners, really, didn't it? Which is a shame, because actually during the sprint qualifying or race, however you want to call it, he did an incredible job. He did exactly what was required of them, used the soft tyres to get position, but didn't, let them burn up too much so that Verstappen could get him back at the end of the race. So top-notch job yesterday. Everything they needed from him today. Wasn't quite able to do that, and actually wasn't able to kind of keep close enough to Verstappen to sort of challenge him at the end, as maybe Mercedes would have wanted him to. But, actually, not an awful day. I think for Bottas, pretty solid race. And I think, using that VSC was a no-brainer, really. The strategy overall of those second stops was very strange from Mercedes, though, I have to say. Like, either cover Verstappen lap for lap or stretch out your middle stint. At the time, it seemed very, very strange. And I guess the point is moot, because they made it work.
So I just read something in chat which quite amused me. Random Bossman saying pole position hasn't meant much for the last 2 months. Since Monza, Sochi, Kota, Mexico, and Brazil, pole position has been overtaken.
Good fact.
Nice. That's just a P2 if they want to be. Definitely. I've got nothing really to add on Bottas. I will just say, a couple people asking, if you are just tuning in, the stewards investigated Lewis Hamilton for undoing his seatbelt. No sporting penalty. Instead, he's received a €5,000 fine and a €20,000 fine, suspended until the end of 2022. So he's got £5,000 to pay now, and 20 grand if he misbehaves again. So nothing to worry about there. Sergio Perez. Well, what did Sergio Perez do? He took advantage of Bottas's mistake with the running wide at turn 4, which put Red Bull in control. I think did a decent job, actually, to be honest, Stuart, at keeping Hamilton at bay as long as he could. I mean, the brilliant move around the outside of turn 1 twice by Hamilton on Perez, but the move from Perez to get back through, I know he did it with DRS in a straight line and it was done before the corner, but it was still quite an important moment at that point of the race, because it just kept Hamilton back a little bit. It cost him a little bit of time, and of course took a bit of life out of his tyres as well. So I think Perez did just about everything he could today to help Max with that one. It was always going to be tough to keep a Mercedes behind.
Yeah, and Hamilton's pace at that point was so fast that when he originally took Perez around the outside at turn 1, I thought that was I think we all thought that was job done and on his way to the next guy. But Perez holding him on and taking him back to keep him back for another lap. It's pretty bold stuff, to be honest. So yeah, great job from Perez. And actually, it's stuff like that, making Hamilton fight another lap, that takes away life from the tyres. And as we saw towards the end of that first stint, Hamilton was suffering with his tyres to such an extent that actually he was going slower than Verstappen by the time they did both take on the hard tyres. So, things like that, every little bit helps. In the end, it didn't stop Hamilton winning, but it could have made the difference on a different day.
It delayed what felt like the inevitable, didn't it? I suppose is the way to look at it for Checo. He was unlucky as well with pit stops, with the time in the virtual safety car, that put him behind Bottas. He did do a massive, you've already said it, Jonty, massive job for the team of Verstappen getting that point for fastest lap towards the end. And I know people go, oh, it's only 1 point, but if this championship's decided on a point, everyone's going to talk about Silverstone, but they might talk about Perez's fastest lap in, where are we? Sao Paulo, I don't even know anymore. So yeah, I will just say also, Random's Bossman 1 says the stewards needed money for dessert.
Yeah.
Comment of the day. A couple more super chats to do before we move on to the rest of the field then. And if we've missed anything, you can save up your questions for Q&A later and we'll try and get to it. So Raz says Saudi Arabia F1 goes off-road. Thank you very much, mate. Jamie Santos, thank you very much, dude, says, hope all is well, gents. Question for all. Do you think the stewards are merely letting that kind of racing go at the latter part of the race and season? I'm going to try it again. Question for you all. Do you think the stewards are merely letting that kind of racing incident go at the later part of the race and season, whereas that would be a penalty if it had happened earlier in the season or earlier in the race? What do you think, Jonty? I'm not sure on that one. I don't think they're letting it go. I just think it's where they didn't investigate it, but they have been asked to let them race, haven't they?
Yeah, they have. It's very difficult if that changes in the middle of the season. I feel like they're trying to keep some consistent, but they just end up being consistently inconsistent. This year, not just last year, this year we've seen the same thing penalised. So they need to nail that down. And I'm still an advocate of a fixed stewarding team, not having different driver stewards at various events.
I think we've been saying that for about 5 years, haven't we?
Yeah.
I don't think it's been I don't think we've seen a particularly inconsistent stewarding this year. I think in particular that's why this weird event today stood out more. that they just seem to be turning a blind eye.
Yeah, maybe. I'm just trying to think of a similar incident they've turned. All I can think of is Alonso Raikkonen at Kota, but that was just 6-1, half a dozen the other, wasn't it? They were never going to give a penalty to one driver for that because they'd have to give it to the other as well. So it's interesting. We could talk about this all day, and we'll probably come back to it later. But It's just one of those. Emily says, undid my belts on the cooldown lap. Here's my fine. Thank you very much, Emily. The other £3 million is suspended until next year. So behave, otherwise we'll be demanding it from you. Thank you very much, Emily. That'll be a no. Let's move on, because we talked about that for, good Lord, 45 minutes.
Seriously?
Ferrari and Alpine.
That was the sprint chat, and now on to the main thing.
Yeah. That's it, red flag. Now we wait for a minute, and now we go again. Where are we? We'll go with Ferrari then. Leclerc and Sainz, massive weekend result for them. 5th and 6th, and with Norris down in 10th place, 1 point for McLaren. I think, Stuart, they've just about got 3rd. I'm going to make the brave call now, because that Ferrari does seem to have the edge over McLaren at the minute, and that is a big swing in points again.
Yeah, I mean, we spoke about this a bit last week. It seemed like all the momentum is moving towards Ferrari, and McLaren did not help themselves today, especially with Lando Norris's first quarter incident. So, yeah, I think the sizzle has gone out of that battle, but we've been proved wrong before. But it does look like Ferrari are just stronger now, doesn't it?
It certainly seems that way. It's the last. It's since they introduced their engine upgrade, that they just seem to have the edge. And I know that anything can still happen. You know, it's not over yet. A couple of DNFs or a couple of non-point scoring races for Ferrari and a big result for McLaren. It can soon swing again. But I just feel like Ferrari have got a grip on that one now. I will talk about the Norris thing, but I'll talk about when we get to Norris, because otherwise I have nothing really to say about him. So we will do that one. Charles Leclerc, on the subject of having nothing to say about anybody, he had a big lock-up, Jonty. Oh, useless. I think the problem with today, it's another one. I was going to say it actually at the start. The problem with today is that it's another race that is, if you want to say, the victim of the fact we've got a great championship fight at the front, because we saw very little of the midfield, because all the focus was rightly so at the battle at the front. So I'm going to come to you, Jonty, and hope you've got something to tell me about Leclerc, because I have got literally Lec written in my notebook and nothing else.
He was pretty quick.
He was driving a red car.
Didn't really see much. Him and Sainz actually got a bit close together on the opening lap. And at the safety car restart as well, which was a little bit worrying when you think back to 2019. It's like, no, don't do it again. I know it's two different. I know one of them's not the same person, but that could have been bad. But no, they were both quick. The turnaround for the last half of the season has been not massive, but definitely gaining momentum. I'm not sure what upgrades Ferrari have been bringing, whether they're for power unit or aero, but there's definitely good improvement. And we know that McLaren, maybe it's just that McLaren can't really bring too many improvements because they spent all their tokens having to make the engine fit.
Do you know, it's funny you say that. That was a worry at the start of the season for a lot of people, wasn't it? Having to kind of squeeze that Mercedes power unit into the McLaren. Everyone thought they'd struggle, so it could be that that's now coming back to bite them. I mean, they had a great start, didn't they, to the season? I mean, Norris was absolutely sensational, and I still think they're in the fight, but they're going to need some luck to get themselves back into that 3rd place. Ferrari looking very, very good. A couple of people just pointing out. Let's have a look. The first one that shouted, I think it was Mary Hove, says both Ferraris ran wide on that opening lap as well, didn't they? So not really a massively entertaining day. I'm at the point of the stream where I'm going to struggle because, again, we didn't see a lot of it, so I'm just going to have to go off press releases and what I've got in my notes. So just Leclerc doing Leclerc things. 9.5 behind Perez at the end. I think he's got to be pretty happy with that. I know that Perez had an extra pit stop, but, you know, the kind of best of the rest there. It's sort of where they need to be if they're going to take this to McLaren. So nothing really to add. Sainz again. We'll talk about that when we get to Norris about that incident, because that'll be an interesting one to discuss briefly. But he cracked on with it. Pitted lap 26 is what I've got in the notes, Stuart, for Sainz. What? Did you see that pit stop? I
did not. I might have done, actually. But yeah, nothing of note. I mean, look, yeah, you're absolutely right. Apart from that sort of bit of a turn 4 skirmish for both of them, they did what they've been doing really well at lately, which is running solidly together as best of the rest. This is what they did in Mexico. This is what they did today, except they didn't have to do any like switching positions to try some stuff out. Solid day in the office. Not much to report.
That'll do. Very strong job. Good job, Ferrari. You did a cracking job. I think Leclerc's actually not all that far. I did the standings and I made a mental note of it. Leclerc
3 points off him, I think.
148 points. Lando Norris 151, so 3 points off P5, which
that could be gone. That could be gone.
I'm going to be honest though, and I'm going to say it myself, British bias. But I want Norris to get that 5th place. I think he had a fantastic start to the season. He's still doing a good a job as he can in that car. Obviously today was a bit sloppy, but I don't want to see him drop out of the top 5. I think based on just the first 2/3 of the season, he deserves 5th place. But people will argue in chat, actually no, 5th place goes to the person who gets 5th place. They deserve it at the end of the season, but it'd be a shame to see him fall out of the top 5, as weird as that might sound, but I don't know. Pierre Gasly, I've got loads. 3 whole lines, and that's because I wrote really big. Pitted, was the first to think in that midfield to trigger the undercuts. Pitted lap 25, dropped to P15. Really nice move on Lando Norris on the inside of turn 1, I thought anyway. Little moment with Ocon, which we could probably discuss under Ocon, but we'll do it now anyway. I can't even read my own handwriting. What the hell is that? Great scrap with Gasly. That's what I've got. Almost touched into turn 1. Very, very close. I think Ocon kind of turned in, didn't he? And Gasly was there and they were so close to contact, but really enjoyed that fight. He seemed pretty racy today. And I just think Gasly's another one of those drivers, Stuart, that's had a flipping stellar season and another decent race. And actually pretty crucial race because his teammate crashed. And that kind of ruined his afternoon. He ended up 15th. We'll talk about Snow in just a second. But with Alpine 8th and 9th, that's a massive 7th place for AlphaTauri today.
Yeah, he really is one of those drivers of the season, isn't he? Just bringing home everything he possibly can from that car. And this was another one of those weekends where we did just that. Saw some nice overtakes and battles from him and got the car home probably as high up as he is ever going to get it. And let's be honest, he is carrying that team. I know he's got a rookie next to him, so it would be unfair to compare the two. But yeah, another stellar day for him. I wouldn't be. I mean, he comes close to being at least podiuming driver of the day almost every weekend, doesn't he?
You're right. He's just another one of those drivers that's just impressed me this season. I'm not going to say what I keep saying about him and back to AlphaTauri and all that, but I don't think there's much more he could have done today. And he made overtakes on both of AlphaTauri's most championship rivals. He got Alonso a lap after he got Ocon, so couldn't have done much more today, could he, Jonty? That's exactly what he needs to do. At least match what Alpine are doing and then try and nick a point somewhere more so that win that Ocon got doesn't swing the championship in Alpine's favour. That's a really fun fight. Like I said at the start, I'm way too invested in that one.
Yeah, I mean, at this point, how can anyone be anything but a massive fan of Gasly? He's been absolutely outstanding, not just all this year, but last year as well. He's just settled right back into that team. And I would so love it if they could split away from the Rebel family, become their own thing and let him properly lead them. He's been outstanding. I mean, just look at most races. If someone said, who came 4th or 5th? You could just throw out Gasly and half the time you'd be right.
You've made me go to Wikipedia now, Jonty. Look what you've done.
It always seems like he's there just off the podium waiting for the front-running teams to trip over each other.
So it
might not be the case, but it feels like it.
Well, yeah, he had a DNF in Italy, a 13th in Russia, and a retirement in USA. But apart from that, every race since Hungary, 5th, 6th, 4th, 6th, 4th, 7th. I mean,
seriously good stuff.
That's what he needs to be doing. And prior to that, I think he was pretty impressive. So from the start of the season, just ignoring DNF. So DNF at the start. So 7th, 10th, 10th, 6th, 3rd, 7th, DNF, 9th, 11th, 5th, 6th, 4th, 6th, 4th, 7th. I mean, can't do any more than that, can he?
Well, Oh, excellent timing on the picture for the stream, by the way. Meanwhile, in the other car,
on the other side of the garage, Yuki Tsunoda. Yeah, go on,
You got to
Stuart.
say, I'm just going to say, you got to say, if he hadn't already had a ill-fated stint at the Red Bull team, Red Bull would currently be slamming him into that second seat for next year. No questions asked. He would be the hottest property for them. Well, apart from Verstappen, obviously, but you know what I mean. Like, if he hadn't already been through the mill there'd be no question he'd be moving up to that the senior team.
yeah, absolutely.
We might even have seen Perez lose his F1 drive at the end of last year completely.
Yeah.
Terrifying thought. Big Perez fans here, of course. Yuki Tsunoda, bless him.
I'm looking at that image. How the hell has he got that massive chunk of wing behind the suspension on the right side of the car?
Yuki's a special kind of awesome.
I
That's
can't
all that
understand the
is.
physics behind that one.
Inside of turn one on Lance Stroll, Lance Stroll called it overambitious. Commentary called it overambitious. Yuki Tsunoda said afterwards, yeah, it probably was a bit overambitious, but Lance Stroll wasn't checking his mirrors. He probably Yuki, because he wasn't expecting you to steam into the side of him, mate. Got it all wrong, really. Contact, as you can see from the picture there, needed a new front wing. Obviously, smashed it all up. Only ended up 15th today. I mean, he just seems, doesn't he, Jonty, to go on a couple of races where you think, here we go. He's starting to get to grips with the car, and then it just sort of all starts to go wrong for him again.
A little bit.
His fault, of course, today.
But yeah, no one can argue that. Did he really say Lance wasn't looking?
He said afterwards that he didn't think Lance was looking in his mirrors.
But no one's looking in the mirrors when you're coming up so fast that you'll probably miss the corner and end up in a different city.
He's the new torpedo for Red Bull. 10-second penalty as well for that one. So, yeah, what's Yuki scored this year? I don't think he scored many points, has he, when you compare it to his teammate? 20 points. I mean, what's his teammate on? 92. And I know Gasly's got a lot more experience than Tsunoda, but Christ, he is carrying that team, Stuart. You bang on. Yeah, I've got... do you agree with the penalty, Jonty, Stuart? Or do you think that was really unfair?
I'd say it's pretty fair.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, he did steam right up there. Let's be honest.
I don't want to be, jumping on him because he's a good driver. He's a really nice guy. He's genuinely lightning fast. But at the moment, he kind of feels a bit like, sorry, younger people, De Cesaris. Super fast, but very prone to incident at the same time. Do you know what I mean? He's either being right up there, challenging for great points, or slamming into someone or something. There's no middle ground. He can't just have a decent race, pick up a couple of points.
Which is, not the worst thing in the world, because we've had young drivers start that way and hone their way in. Massa was one of those guys when he came in. You can train that out of them rather than being a slow guy who never hits anyone.
Yeah, it's definitely something he can work on and get better at. So I hope he does. I'd like him to stay around in F1. Again, call me one of those old time watchers or what have you, but I always feel like there should be a Japanese driver on the grid.
And a Brazilian driver. It feels weird not having a Brazilian driver at what is basically still the Brazilian Grand Prix with a different name. It feels really weird. I was just going to say, you mentioned Felipe Massa then in his early days. I'm also sure he had some weird throttle input or something, didn't he? He used to drive the car a bit weird, I seem to recall, was a thing that Sauber picked up on. But anyway, that's neither here nor there. I'm going to read you his quote. Tsunoda said it was a risky move, but he just wasn't looking in his mirrors and we came together. It's a real shame I received the penalty, as I also struggled with damage for the rest of the race. But these things happen and we'll work to come back stronger next time out. So yes, just confirmation there that Stroll, check your mirrors. Yuki might be there. That's probably the way drivers have to approach it. I don't know what else to say on Tsunoda. Just frustrating that he just doesn't see. Because you said it, Jonty. He's got the speed. We know he's got the speed. Look what he did in F2, but just needs to calm down a little bit. but not too much because I still want that aggression.
Yeah, I mean, the one that always sticks out in my mind is qualifying for Baku. He was fighting to be like on the third row of the grid, and then he just completely ballsed up one corner out of nowhere. It's like, oh, come on. You're better than this.
He's a good egg. He'll be fine. Ocon, Alonso, that's Alpine, isn't it? Yeah, well done, Sean, not Renault. Alpine, what have we got for Ocon and Alonso? So, Alonso, slow stop, 4 seconds. Left rear, question mark. I think it was left rear. It was left something, I believe. 4/10 behind, half a second, basically, behind Esteban Ocon at the end. So, maybe that stop cost him P8. Obviously, they're racing in the constructors, so from an Alpine point of view, that makes no difference, but I'm sure Alonso would have liked to have beaten his teammate. And we just talked about Ocon into turn 1 with Gasly, a little bit of a little scary moment at that speed, but both absolutely fine. No contact as far as I know. I guess really then, Stuart, first things first, do you think that stop cost Alonso that pace? Because at the end, bearing in mind Ocon did a 1:15.2 and Alonso 1:23.4 on those final laps. So I don't think the pace was quite there with Fernando. But also, who do you think is coming out on top in that battle? AlphaTauri or Alpine? Right on the spot.
Oh, it's a tricky one, isn't it? I think Gasly in the AlphaTauri is the faster package, but again, it does seem to be for the most part just Gasly in the AlphaTauri, whereas Ocon Alonso are sort of able to bring home points more consistently as a pair as they did today. I wouldn't like to call it, but Alpine have sort of upped their game a little bit towards the end of the season, just a little bit, but just enough to sort of to know they're getting points almost every race. I think their press releases for whatever it was, 8 races in a row, I think they were like, the point streak continues for Alpine. So, that's the kind of season they're having at the moment. I don't think we really saw it on the feed, but I think Ocon and Alonso swapped positions like Ferrari did last year in order to get Alonso to try and attack Gasly ahead, but they couldn't do that. So Alonso gave the position back to Ocon in the end. So, they're playing the team game, same as Ferrari, just trying to maximize every point really, which is good.
Yeah, well, thank you, because I missed that. I didn't even know that had happened, but that also explains the 1:23.4. I assumed Alonso had just decided that, given that he's cut so many corners through his career, he was going to take the longer way around. Can I just say that, actually, Stuart, I meant to do it yesterday, but I didn't bother. But you tweeted something, we were taking a mickey about the stewards a little bit, and you tweeted something along the lines of somebody needs to keep an eye on Alonso because you know what he's like for cutting corners, and then the next session he topped FP2 and all I thought was, called it. Cheating swine.
Did anyone really keep an eye on which line he took? Mm-hmm.
Exactly. It was a 57-second lap, to be fair. I didn't know about that one, so thank you for pointing out, Stuart, for swapping him around. Let's hop on to McLaren, Aston Martin and Alfa Romeo. That was some sort of accent. It was there. Lando Norris. Great start. Great start, Jonty. And then contact with Carlos Sainz. Now, it looks, from every angle that I've seen, as though Lando just seems to think he's got past Carlos and then comes across and tags him. Is that your read of it?
I think it's just a bit of just coming in a bit early, thinking he's further past. I don't think there's anything actually in it. It's just a bit of bad timing on when they was coming across. There was nothing malicious from Sainz or from Lando.
No, I don't think that for a second. You agree, Stuart? Just a first lap racing moment, incident?
Yeah, I think it was a bit of bad luck, really. I listened to Lando talking about it after the race, and he said he got a good start. He was on the outside. He had 2 wheels off the track, 2 wheels on the track, and he was like, I had to come back onto the track at some point. But obviously, Sainz on the inside, there's 20 cars around them. They can't, move all the way over to let people back on, and Sainz wasn't going to exactly offer track space to Lando. So I think it was just unfortunate that it all came together like that. And Lando was the one that suffered for it. I think, if you had to put blame in either direction, you'd probably give it to Lando for moving back across on Sainz. But, these things happen at the start. There's only a limited amount of space.
Yeah, I agree. I think probably Lando would take a bit of that as well. I didn't hear his interview afterwards, and I have not seen the press release. He might blame Carlos. Lando doesn't strike me as that. He might say that he feels he deserved a bit more space or something like that. But the usual F1 driver cliches after an incident. But I tend to agree with you, Stuart. There, it's pretty devastating for him though, to come away with just 1 point for McLaren. And I think it's all ifs and buts, of course, at this stage and hindsight. But you look at the race. If he gets that start right, gets clearer sights, he's right in that mix with Leclerc and Carlos for potentially the rest of the race, and that's keeping that fight alive for McLaren. So pretty horrible day for McLaren, really. And Ricciardo, by the way, retired with a loss of power. What was he doing before that? Anybody?
Getting passed by Vettel.
Oh, he did, yes. Yes, he did.
Yeah, that's true.
That was it.
I'm trying to...
He got back past Vettel, though, didn't he? Vettel got through and Ricciardo got back past, and then Vettel got back past again.
So just wound back the live timing. He was 8th between Gasly and Ocon at the point that he retired.
So he's doing all right then. He was on for some points, which
Unfortunately, yeah.
that's a shame. That's a shame because I think it's another one of those fights. I want the championship fight to go down to the wire, both of them. I want the Alpine Alfa fight to go down to the wire. And I was hoping the Ferrari McLaren one will go down to the wire, but this one looks like it's going to be over at this rate. So what's it at? 287.5 for Ferrari and 256 for McLaren. It's a long way back from there, but McLaren have won a race this year and had a pole position. Could have won 2 races, so you never know. We're going to 2 tracks that we don't know at all, and 1 track that's been tweaked. So they could still get into it, Jonty. Do you think?
Maybe. It's going to be time.
Tough one, isn't it? I'm not really sure on that, but we'll just roll straight over that. We've talked. I don't really see any point in going over the Norris sites thing any more than that because it's one of those things. It was just really unfortunate that Norris came off the worst in his case. But if you've got to blame somebody, the one to blame, then it's just the way it goes. So yeah, Seb Vettel, Aston Martin. Weird day for Seb. I thought he was doing better. I didn't call him Sebby Vettel this week. That's a start, Stuart. So not quite as late, which is probably helping. But P11, 1.2 off Norris in the end. I think Norris got him quite late on, didn't he? So Aston Martin. I think we said this the last 2 streams, to be fair, Stuart. P11, that's kind of where they've been around and about recently. So kind of what you'd expect from Alfa Romeo. And I've got nothing written under Vettel because I didn't even pick up on the Ricciardo thing. Shocking.
Yeah, but he did have that overtake. I think he sort of probably deserved more than 0 points. Frustratingly close. But yeah, again, we just didn't see very much of him, did we? Because there was so much happening at the front. And as we've said before, I think Aston Martin are kind of winding it up now. They're not really focused on pushing too much the rest of the year.
Well, they're not. They've got nothing to gain now, have they? They're not gonna fall behind. They're not gonna get caught in the constructors. They're not gonna catch anybody in the constructors, barring some kind of absolute freaking miracle. Where are they at now? So they're 7th in the standings, 68 points. Williams are their closest rivals on 23, and it's nearly double the points to AlphaTauri. So it's all about next year for them now, isn't it? Tend to agree on that one. So not much else to say there, except for poor Lance Stroll. Got snowded into turn 1. That's a new phrase. Apparently, that'll be in the dictionary before you know it. Got snowded into turn 1. Damage to his car. Made a number of pit stops. I know obviously it's a bit difficult with pit stops on the live timing because they went through the pits a couple of times, didn't they, with the safety car. Pace just wasn't there. Car was falling apart. Jonty, I feel for him a little bit actually because he seems to race pretty well in that car at the moment. I know it's not been spectacular, but he's been racing pretty well in that car. So it's a bit disappointing he wasn't able to come through and get something from that, but damaged car as it falls apart in a straight line, there's not much more he could do, is there?
No, not really. I mean, we know excuse me, we know just how important all of the turning vanes and bargeboard areas is on these cars, and his was completely demolished. He was never going to have any pace in that thing.
Kimi, Raikkonen, I've got nothing else to say on Aston Martin. I'm hoping they're going to be pretty competitive next year, to be fair. Raikkonen, pit lane start. Where did he end up in that one? wasn't spectacular, but not bad. P12, actually, that's not bad, is it? About where you'd expect them to be. So he's recovered that quite nicely. A couple of retirements, of course, have helped with that. But P12 had a spin or contact with his teammate yesterday in the sprint. Stuart kind of came across, didn't he, Kimmy? I don't think Gio had any way of avoiding that one. So I'm coming to that because I've got nothing else to say on Kimmy for the race. So we'll go to the sprint for that one. Why not?
We're not going to discuss him crashing into Mick Schumacher because that happened.
Did it?
Yes.
Do you remember Mick's front wing came off and got lodged under his turn one?
So
okay, well there you go. Yeah. Mick Schumacher. Well, Kimi came around the outside of Mick Schumacher into turn one, and Mick lost it a bit. I don't think there was any bad driving. I think just the car ran out of grip and slid into Raikkonen, and yeah, that's the noteworthy thing of Raikkonen today.
Yeah, do you want to add to that, Jonty? Because apparently I think that Raikkonen and Russell are the same person. So
there wasn't really much going on at all at the back, to be honest, even between themselves, apart from that one incident with Schumacher and Gio. Can't even remember who it was.
It was Kimi, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, he did do a good job of getting that wing sort of completely perpendicular, so you had an end fence facing forwards all the way around. It looks very weird.
Lots of impressive front wing acrobatics today then. Tsunoda shoving it in the suspension.
Jonty's printing the pictures off and putting them on his wall. He's so impressed with what Tsunoda did and how Mick Schumacher did with his. Yeah.
Well, at least we didn't get a piece of it stuck in Bottas's car like we did last year.
Charles Obuchi says, did you all just get way louder? I
don't know, maybe.
Not on my thing. My thing's okay. Maybe we just got really excited.
Maybe you leant on the button, Charles Edward Cheese.
I do that a lot. We've been on for 71 minutes, so
yes,
yeah, it's gonna happen.
It's like it's like alcohol. We just get louder and more obnoxious as we go along.
Yeah, the more chat calms down, the more we seem to just want to annoy you all. Yeah, so Kimi, P12, obviously that incident with Mick Schumacher, of course, I remember that, apparently. But I think getting through to P12 is a pretty decent result, Jonty, from the pit lane in that car. It's not a great car, is it? Let's be honest. Helped by other things, of course.
Yeah, decent.
Yeah. Anything on Gio, Stuart? I've got nothing. He was there, bless him.
Yeah, no, not too much. I'm sure he was doing a solid job. He normally has been. But yeah, nothing to really write home about.
Yeah, and possibly, of course, if we believe are we still calling it speculation and rumours? But if we believe it, this is the last race that we're going to know, or this is the last time Gio's in that car and we're looking at him going, he could be here next year. Looks like Zhou's got that seat.
Yeah, I think so. I saw something about the fact that he was about to be informed about it. And I also saw a tweet that was a picture of a window on a Chinese car dealership that said, "Congratulations for Zhou, first Chinese Formula One driver." So maybe that car dealership knows something we don't.
It was an Alfa dealership as well, wasn't it? Could you imagine it was a Mercedes dealership or something like that?
This is another early leak thing, like the banners that had been put up around Zandvoort, saying, "Well, Zandvoort 2020," and it was like several months before it was officially announced.
I remember that. They just can't keep. F1 are terrible at keeping secrets. They really, really are. Crystal Racer says apparently Gio had a bad strategy according to his fans. Gio always has a bad strategy. It's not even worth mentioning anymore. Gio just always has a bad strategy. Meant to say as well, by the way, slow stop for Lando Norris. And then we've got Williams and Haas. We've sort of talked about Haas, haven't we? We'll say Williams. 13th for Russell. 27 seconds behind Raikkonen. 2.5 seconds clear of Giovinazzi. You're now going to tell me he was involved in some massive controversy I've forgotten about, but I think I wrote pitted under the safety car for the hard tyre. I totally get I totally get that they have to focus on the fight at the front, Jonty. I really do, but it does make these streams bloody difficult when
Yeah.
you've not seen anything and you want to get through every single driver. But Russell going through the motions now a little bit. Williams seems to have fallen off actually a little bit, don't they, just lately?
Yeah. Yeah, they have. And you would assume it's because they're putting more and more focus into next year. But then a couple of weeks ago, we had we might be struggling at the start of 2022. So that's a big worry.
I hope that's not true. I mean,
Yeah.
if I was Williams and I was gifted 18 points, or, well, half of 18 points, then, yeah, I would probably shift all my focus to next year because that's more than you would ever have hoped for.
Yeah.
Latifi. Yeah, I think I've just seen it in chat. Daniel Philpott said Williams existed this race, I guess. It's kind of how I feel. I didn't see much of them at all. Latifi, P16, 4 seconds off Tsunoda. Nothing in my notes, so I'm just going to roll on. Sorry, Latifi fans. Mick Schumacher, we've kind of talked about him as well with the Raikkonen thing where he lost his front wing, got it back to the pits. Disappointing, I guess, for him to finish behind his teammate, 37.3 behind. I don't know if there's any extra damage. I would assume there would be, Stuart, because usually when one thing breaks on these F1 cars, it takes something else with it.
Yeah, and the fact that he finished behind Mazepin probably suggests that he did have damage because he would have got to the back of that safety car train and so on. And he does tend to outperform Mazepin at the time. In fact, Mazepin was 14th at the time of the safety car. So yeah, I think probably a bit damaged, but hard to tell really with the Haas, isn't it? There's nothing really to benchmark it against. You can't tell if it's slow because it's slow or slow because it's got a big hole in the side.
Falling Vegas says Latifi got told off by his engineer for complaining about strategy on his radio. So that's something for Latifi. Yeah, I mean, could you imagine if there's a little bit of damage on a barge board to Haas and then suddenly Schumacher ended up 8th? And they just sat there and went, oh, that was it. That's all we had to do was fix that barge board in that specific way. But yeah, not much to add to that. Nikita Mazepin, not much to say on his race today because, again, we saw nothing of him. But moment after after qualifying on Friday, I think it was, wasn't it, where he got a little bit emotional, much to the pleasure of some people on social media. Are people calling it a weird reaction, Stuart? But I actually think I'd rather see him get emotional and show that he gives a damn than just stand there and go whatever. I felt a little bit for him, but I'd much rather see a driver show that emotion, show that they care, because he was on for probably one of his best laps of the season before the mistake, and apparently there's some stuff going on as well with people leaving and jobs being shuffled that got him a bit emotional.
Oh, I don't know much about the latter. I hadn't heard that. Yeah, I think his reaction is quite fair. I think it's comparable to, I don't know, I think we've seen times where, like, for example, George Russell last year had the opportunity to maybe get some points. You know, he knows how tricky it is to get anything out of the car that he's in. And it seemed like he felt he had an opportunity to do something and it just didn't happen from him. And that's got to be incredibly frustrating because I think he's spending most weekends, most sessions thinking, well, I'm going to be at the back and I can't, show anything for myself, and having one session where you think you can do that and it disappearing from you. Yeah, it's got to be very frustrating. So yeah, I totally understand his reaction there. And I know nothing about the team around him. I barely know anything about the club that he was in earlier this week either. I know so little about these things.
I have no idea what club we're on about at all. I don't even know. I don't look at that. Anything you want to add, Jonty, on Nikita Mazepin?
No, it shows that he's human.
Yeah.
Good to confirm.
Yeah, we weren't sure. Mazepin the Martian. Anyway, that was random. Do a few super chats, then we'll do the obvious driver of the day. So I'll just hint there so you've both got a bit of time to think. I've only got one name on my board today. Uh-oh. Let's see what you guys are saying. So We've done Emily. I think it's just Andre's super chat actually that I've missed. So, Sean, you deserve a super chat. Love your channel. Glad you shout out, trying to keep things clean. Haters should leave hate at the door. Thank you very much, mate. Always appreciate it. And thank you for your support. Charles Edward Cheese, we are 49 away. 49 away, Charles, from 500. So please do drop a like. Still got 1,200 odd watching. Please do drop a like for Charles for that contribution earlier. I'm going to pause now.
For effect.
It just helps me put the timestamp in later. That's all it is. There's no cool thing behind it. Driver of the day. Jonty. Lewis Hamilton got the official one. Who's your driver of the day? Yeah, Jonty's driver of the day. Did you not see? You wouldn't have seen him on the feed. He was out there. Let me know in chat, by the way. One surname. Who is your driver of the day? Who you got, Jonty?
Well, obviously I want to say Hamilton, but that's what everyone's going to say. So I'm going to say Gasly.
Pierre Gasly. Gazzle dazzles. Oh Christ, what time is it? Yeah, we're losing it. Stuart, who's your driver of the day? What's your driver of the day?
I was just looking at the official results. Gasly only got 5th. He was behind Norris and Mazepin, who got 3rd and 4th in the official poll.
Really?
I don't know why. I can't not say Hamilton. Like, he just smashed every competitive session this whole weekend. I know it's driver of the day, but just what a drive when he did it the most. Really, really impressive. I can't really give it to anyone else, can I? I will say Verstappen had an incredibly robust defense, and considering the pace wasn't there in that car compared to the Mercedes, he did an incredible job that I think is worth lauding, but Hamilton nailed it today.
The one name on my board is Hamilton. I think there's part of it is, well, most of it is because his drive and his weekend was absolutely incredible, given how he turned it around. But also part of it is that I don't think I saw enough of any other driver to make a call on it today. Maybe after seeing some replays later in the week, I'll be able to say, actually, no, they had a really great race. But for me, it has to be Hamilton. But I do want to give honourable mentions to Kimi Räikkönen, because I should have given him one last week and I didn't. But 12th place from the pit lane, not bad. I also want to give an honourable mention to Lance Stroll for getting that car as far as he did after it had been snowed, not just pulling over immediately. So, no, I think Hamilton for me. I think Gasly's a good shout, to be fair, Jonty. I think he was good today. Maybe one of the Ferrari boys, maybe Leclerc.
Just pick one at random, one of them.
I mean, I was literally only saying that because you were both going to say Hamilton, and 99% of the chat was going to say Hamilton. Rightly so.
Yeah.
I just, as a slight tangential point, because I kept meaning to say earlier and I forgot, and you just reminded me about Hamilton was one of the only people we saw today. Yesterday, when he overtook like 14 people, somehow we managed to miss 11 of them live, and we had to see them on a replay because we were following Perez around for some reason. Bizarre TV direction on the sprint. Just wanted to point that out.
Yeah.
I can't actually remember what about.
Just during the sprint, I spent the whole time thinking, why are we not looking at Hamilton? Because he's overtaking someone every lap. And we kept looking at
true.
Red Bull versus Ferrari, I think. And then we'd have to keep going to replays for Hamilton. It was just a really bizarre choice.
Did it work out as something like 0.6 overtakes a lap? He pulled off. Something like that.
That sounds about right. I haven't done the maths, but sounds, yep.
I read that somewhere. If that was your tweet, anybody, awesome. I haven't done the maths, but yeah, it'd be about there, I would say. So yeah, I mean, I was going to say who's driver of the weekend, but again, it doesn't really spice things up a bit. So we'll see what chat are saying chat. Fill in the blank says Hamilton. Crystal Race says Gasly's overtakes on the Alpines. They're critical, absolutely critical. Daniel Philpott says smash that like button. Has to be Hamilton for Mark Toth. Mazepin for F1 Fan 89. Emily says Lewis Hamilton driver of the day. Sorry, no contest. Nuts to the haters. Hamilton for driver of the day, says Kitty Hawk. Thank you very much. Hey Ray, Sir Lewis, Carl Davidson, Hamilton. JC says Norris. Jamie says Lewis. Fanta Boy says Hamilton. Vesk says Hamilton. Ben says Hamilton. Villager says Leclerc. Random's boss man says Lewis, who's already got comment of the day. Jamie's given you his vote, Jonty. He's given you a vote, so there you go. You've got a shot. Probably more votes than some drivers got. Pauline says Perez. Jessica says Lewis because he earned it. Sam's gone with Hamilton. Jay's gone with Hamilton. Pierre Gasly, driver of the day for Daniel Philpott. Safe says beside Hamilton, Gasly. So there you go. Kitty Hawk says even the cat said Hamilton. We get them all. We've got loads of guests on the stream today. Adam's gone with Hamilton. Jonty's cat, it's fine. Who else have we got? Elliot says, thank you very much for your contribution, by the way, mate. Your super chat says, Lewis so rarely gets driver of the day. That was lovely that he finally won it after 24 overtakes. Was this his best drive ever? Best ever weekend? Thank you very much, mate. Chris says Stoffel, of course. Why not? Sudeep says driver of the day was Lewis Hamilton's new ICE or Lulu's new ICE. I can just sense the salt in that comment. I'm sorry, dude, but oh dear. Seven Overland says Perez deserves second in driver of the day for excellent defending without pushing another driver off track. Actually, that's a good point. We didn't mention Perez, did we, in the driver of the day debate there? He did everything he could to keep Hamilton behind as long as he could. So maybe he does deserve a nod there. Couple of people saying Valentino Rossi. That'd be rider of the day, wouldn't it?
Rider of this. What? Let's call him rider of the century. Yeah. And a fond farewell to a true motorsport legend.
Yeah, I can't disagree with that. I don't know a lot about MotoGP, which my dad hates because he's a big motorbike fanatic and he's got a few bikes, but he, Valentino Rossi's the one he's always talked about. So there you go. Plus, I think everybody knows who Valentino Rossi is, whether you follow MotoGP or not, really. Absolute legend. We know that one. And a couple more for driver of the day. Anybody that we've missed? Just if somebody says something different but serious, if that makes sense. There'll be lots of people that are like Maldonado. Kimmy says Carl. I did give Kimmy a bit of a shout there. I think that's fair enough. Jack says Liuzzi, driver of the day. And I think most people saying, most people going with Lewis Hamilton. No great surprise there. Really? I don't.
No, not at all.
No, I can't argue with it. Normally I try and put an argument up, but I think that is fair enough. If you've got any questions, by the way, chat, now's your time to pop them in. We would prefer race related, but if you want to ask us about something else, then feel free. F1 related, ideally, and we'll answer a few of those. I've got nothing really that I want to talk about other than the chaos that was Friday to Saturday. I mean, what a bizarre weekend, Stuart. I mean, I don't think I've ever known, or certainly not for a very long time, a weekend that was so dominated by pre-session and post-session stewards' inquiries that lasted, 24 hours or something like that? Absolute madness.
Yeah, I mean, I said earlier in the stream, so we had Hamilton's wing under investigation for perhaps opening a bit too wide with DRS. That was the one thing. And then we had Verstappen under investigation for fiddling with Hamilton's rear wing in Parc Fermé, which, touching other people's cars is something that's sort of been going on a bit lately in the last few years. And I think it was right to clamp down on it. But despite saying that I think the stewards did a very good job of explaining all of their decisions and why they gave the penalties that they did, I see no explanation as to why it took such a long time to come to those decisions. We went through an entire free practice session and almost all the way up to the sprint quali before they came up with their their decision, their announcement, and their penalty. There, no time for any kind of appeals process really, unless you wanted to throw everything on the line. So yeah, it was just very, very strange, and of course, stoked an incredible flame that we know exists between sort of Hamilton camp and Verstappen camp. And I have to say, I think Red Bull, and particularly Christian Horner, are very, very good at fanning that flame and getting everyone in a tiz about it. I don't know whether that's a good thing or not. I don't know whether that's just part of a sport or something that's a bit like, I wish you wouldn't. But Christian Horner is very good at seeding doubt in people's minds.
Do you know what an incredible job what job Horner would be absolutely incredible at? WWE manager.
Okay.
Cutting promos as his character, the principal. That would be absolutely amazing.
Not Windsor Spice. Windsor Spice would be a great wrestling name. Yes, Jonty, I agree. I think the explanation was massive, wasn't it, when the documentation came through? So it was quite clear that they were going over every avenue. I said to you in DMs, Jonty, I thought it had been with the lawyers. I think that's been with the lawyers before they've even released it. Just a gut feeling. There's no evidence behind that, just the way it felt yesterday. But they definitely went and explored every avenue. And I think, in their defence, the stewards, I think they did explain. We said this again yesterday with Stuart when we were chatting. I think they did explain things really well. To be fair, I think the stewards made sure that they gave the best explanation they could, and it kind of made it difficult for Mercedes to argue against it. So it was just such a really bizarre situation. Then you've got the rumours flying around that there's accusations that Max Verstappen has tampered with evidence, and that's a problem. Although I don't know if those were linked in the end. Whether that was I don't think Mercedes made that complaint, unless I'm completely wrong. I'm sure you'll correct me. But it's just a really crazy situation. It felt like waiting for a Formula E race result, Jonty. It just seemed to take forever.
Yeah, a tad slow, wasn't it? We were all making jokes about Formula E at the time.
No great surprise. I don't disagree either. I think the penalty itself, it's a technical infringement, and it failed a test. Now I know you've got some question marks over that test yourself, Jonty. You're not sure it's the right way to go about it, the equipment they use, but it still failed a test in scrutineering, and that is generally slam dunk penalty. You're disqualified. And I've got to say as well, very relieved, very, very relieved that Max Verstappen only got a fine, because I think if that had been a penalty, I'm not sure what I'd have said, because I don't think and I know it's a bit of whataboutism, but I don't think it's fair to slap Verstappen with a sporting penalty for touching the rear wing when other drivers have touched other parts of cars and nobody's ever batted an eyelid about it.
Yeah, but they haven't had cause to say anything about it.
Oh, yeah.
It's the pure coincidence that on the one occasion, the thing that is touched fails scrutineering. It's it's one of those things you couldn't script, because it just 1,000,000,000 to 1 chance. So, yeah, no one should be touching their own car, not even the driver of the car. They get out, they put the wheel on, that's it. You do not touch it again. All the times we've seen, like Lewis, when he was inspecting his own tyres after what was left of his tyre after Silverstone last year, and other drivers kneeling down and patting the nose, that's all breach of the regulations, technically, but it never means anything. It's just that this one time it did. It gave them an argument.
I think it's important that we at least, I think this was a line drawn by the stewards, by the FAA, that you just don't touch each other's cars. Probably a little bit more leeway with touching your own cars, just because it's nice, seeing people have that relationship with their car and things. I think, there's certain things you don't really want to get rid of as part of the...
I've seen pictures of relationships with cars on the internet. No.
But there are other things. For example, you're not really supposed to interact with your team until you've been weighed, because they could slip you some weights, for example. But they do. They let them hug their team and celebrate with their team, because I think it's more important that we see that. But again, if they wanted to, they could start clamping down on that. And the way everything's getting very paranoid at the moment, especially between the top teams, you could see things like that happening. Not people doing dodgy things, but people getting paranoid and putting a stop to that.
Yeah, there is definitely a paranoid atmosphere, isn't there? Definitely. There's no doubt about it. I'm going to read this. Thank you to Black Hawk So for bringing this to my attention on Twitter. Eric Van Haren has tweeted, and with a bit of Google Translate, it says race director Michael Massey just announced that the stewards did not have access to the onboard images of Verstappen in a duel with Hamilton, only the images that were available for everyone to see. And Massey says, quote, "We have kept the let them racing philosophy here," or let them race philosophy here. So that's why there wasn't an investigation, because they couldn't investigate it because there was nothing to investigate because they had no footage. So that's interesting. I'm not quite sure where that. I thought everybody had an onboard, didn't they now? Unless I'm wrong. It used to be in the older days. It used to be a select number on the grid had them, but I'm pretty sure every single car has an onboard now, don't they, Jonty?
Yeah, it's I'm I think one of us is going to have to rewatch the race because I'm certain we had onboard from front facing. We had footage from the front facing onboard camera of Max's car at some point. And as it was pointed out on the Sky broadcast, it suddenly switched at that point.
Interesting.
Definitely had to confirm whether that was the case. I agree with you. I always thought that the T-cam, or one of the cameras stuck to the side of the bodywork, one of the essentially cockpit cameras, front-facing cockpit cameras. I thought every car had one of those hooked up to the live broadcast. I thought that was the case. I know that not every camera on a car is hooked up to the live broadcast, and some of them have to be downloaded afterwards if you want to get more information. But yeah, I am like you. I did think that every car had at least one cockpit cam of some description. So yeah, that's at least worth clarifying.
Yeah, I've got nothing else to add to that. I will read Black Hawk. So I did love Seb's reaction after the sprint race yesterday, joking about touching Hamilton's wing and wondering if it was 25k if he touches the front one. Seb's just such a dad now, isn't he? I mean, he's just so brilliant. Always is. No more respect to Seb as well, which is a shame, but I totally get it. Let's see what you guys asked you some questions, then I completely ignored you. Let's have a look what you're saying. Do you guys think Red Bull's development this year hurt them next season? That's from Ty. I think Verstappen was asked about development for the rest of the season, by the way, after the race, and he said that this is it. There's nothing else. So they'll probably turn up with a massive upgrade in Qatar. I can't always believe what these teams say, but I think there is an argument because I think a lot of people brought this up a couple of months back now, and we're talking about development in a stream and sort of bringing up 2009 and that title fight in 2008 between McLaren and Ferrari and how much that seemed to sort of hurt them in the early phases of 2009, which gave everyone else a head start. Do you think that's a concern, Stuart, for Mercedes and Red Bull, or do you think they've got? I kind of feel like they've got enough personnel and enough money to manage that, but then you could argue you'd have expected Ferrari and McLaren to in 2008. So
it's a real tricky one, and let's be honest, we're not going to know until we see it, until we see the next year's performance. The difference here, I think, for the worse, for the teams in terms of exaggerating the 2009 effect, is they now have stricter budget caps, stricter caps on the time they can spend in the wind tunnel doing CFD, etc. So in terms of allocating their resources between this year and the next, that is a much more difficult task for them. Which I think is why you see some of the teams that are sort of have figured out roughly where they're sitting in the constructors have decided to kind of move earlier than others. So potentially, yes, these top teams, particularly Red Bull, could suffer next year if they don't have a solid plan. I say particularly Red Bull because we know that Mercedes probably exaggerating how much, but Mercedes have not focused on this year as much as Red Bull have. They haven't brought as much development energy to it because they have set their sights on 2022 quite early on. So they could be much better prepared for next year than Red Bull are. But again, it just comes down to how much you believe what the teams tell you, which, let's be honest, take it all with a pinch of salt. But yeah, I think the main takeaway is we're not going to know till next year. But I think we could see some of the teams that have been having to focus on this year suffer next year.
To answer your question, how much do we believe the teams? I don't at all. Not at all. I can't disagree with that. I think the point is we're not going to know, are we? You've said, Stuart. We shall see next year. But if we get to that first race of the season, or even testing, and Red Bull and Mercedes are off the pace, then we probably will look at this season and go, "Oh, that's put you on the back foot." But I actually agree properly, firmly, like 100% with what Red Bull and Max Verstappen are saying when they say, yeah, we totally understand that 2022 is important, but when you've got the chance to win a title, you've got to go for it. I'm completely behind them on that. They have to throw everything at it if this is their opportunity, because next year's such a lottery. They could put full focus on next year, not bother with this year, and end up third. Whereas this year they've got a shot for that title, so I'm totally behind them on that one. It's that you've just got to go for it.
Mm-hmm. And let's not forget McLaren and Ferrari, who were the big title protagonists in 2008, did suffer in 2009, but came back again in 2010. So yeah, you've got to go for what you've got in your hands right now, and know you've got the skill and resources to make it back later if it turns out you've kind of thrown away what's essentially a gamble in 2022.
Yeah, but the one thing I'd like to say, do we know for certain where testing's being carried out next year? I would hope Bahrain, considering that's where the first race is.
It is
it's both.
It's Spain for. Is it Spain? It's something like Spain for 5 days at the end of February, and then Bahrain a week before the first race for 3 days.
I think that's right, and only the Bahrain one I think is going to be televised.
Yeah.
Annoyingly,
but it's safe to say that we are going to know absolutely nothing from testing. Certainly not from the first week, and the second week maybe a tiny bit, but still nothing. There's a good reason it'll be in Bahrain, because all of that sand will be in the cars. Every team will be running far from their full pace.
We will have no idea next year until qualifying in Bahrain, and I'm going to say it, we're not going to see these cars in full 2022 spec until Bahrain, the first race, not testing. It's going to be double diffuser style, covert hiding stuff. There's going to be, can you remember Braun kept covering the front of their car when they were trying to hide their diffusers, to covering the front, so everyone was like, what's under that front wing, and we're ignoring the back of the car. It's going to be that kind of testing, which I'm actually quite excited for, because I'm sad, but I hate the idea that it's not going to be televised in Spain. That's going to make any potential testing stream thrilling. What's happening, Sean? Don't know. Who knows anymore? Max Clayton says, Friday night qualifying, yay or nay? What do you reckon, Jonty? I actually quite like having qualifying on a Friday. Or at least a competitive session on a Friday.
Yeah, I suppose for people at the track, it's good. It's good, especially when there's no support categories, or at least not the top end support categories, because there has been support here. I'm not sure what to have competitive on a Friday, but it just doesn't feel right. Yes, old man, blah blah.
What about you, Stuart? Quite like qualify on a Friday?
I mean, I do. but my job is arranged around Formula One. I don't have to go to work and then catch up with it later, or hope that the timing of it aligns with me being home and stuff. So that's annoying. It is great at the track. I did manage to do Friday at Silverstone, and that day was a great day. There's a lot of good things about it. I do like just having those 3 days. There is something competitive and interesting happening on each of those days. It sort of livens up Friday a bit. The only problem really is it is a work day for a lot of people, which you can't really escape.
Yeah, even more so for those outside of Europe. I mean, for Brazil, it was great, like you say, because it was been in the evening. But for a European race, it's already awkward for people elsewhere in the world. And if that's on a work day, it makes it even worse than that.
Yeah, this exactly. So I hope they think about which races they put them on next year, because if we're going to be doing 6 of these things, it is tricky. It is a tricky thing.
Well, I'll put this question to you two, and I'll put it to chat as well. And please take this with the huge level of sarcasm that is intended. So we've had the 3 sprint race trials. Do we think they'll adopt these going forward? After all, they were going to review it after the 3rd one. What do you think, Jonty?
So they were going to review it after the 3rd?
Yeah, they were going to review it
We've only
after
just had
this
the
one.
3rd.
Yeah.
Yeah, but they decided like over a month ago that they were having 6 or 7 next year.
They decided the minute they got signed off from the teams to try 3. It was I keep saying it. You do not sign a multi-year $1 million deal with a title sponsor, spend a fortune on branding for just 3 trials. It was decided as soon as it was signed off from the teams. I said it at the time. They're not trialing it. They're going for it, which is fine. But own it. But officially, the line is today was a trial, or yesterday was a trial, the 3rd one. So who knows?
If they're going to insist on 2 races a weekend, because it is a race, I don't care what they say, it's a bloody race, then make it identical to F2, please.
Especially the non-3 race F2, that got a bit weird. But the classic 2 race F2,
the
one they're bringing back next year,
do quali, reverse quali for the first race, use quali for the second race. That's what they're doing next year, as opposed to the main race on a Saturday, reverse grid from that race on a Sunday.
I think there's definitely a number of things they can do, and I think this is the worst of them, because it's essentially just extending the race. Essentially, is what they're doing, and either mix up the grid a bit, which I know some people are opposed to, or separate it from the race entirely. One of the thoughts I had was, maybe use the second best qualifying time to set the grid for the sprint race, and then have the sprint race be its own thing with its own points, or use the times from Q1 to set the sprint race, something like that. The trouble with that is it can be gamed a bit, but whatever. I'm sure they can think of something. Something I have heard bandied about that they're doing for next year is that the sprint race is going to be its own sort of its own sort of championship, and then the top 10 in that championship will get points that will count towards the actual championship.
Huh?
So they do 6 sprint races, and then the top 10, if you just count the sprint races as their own thing, the top 10 championship table of the sprint race at the end of those 6 will give you championship points for the real championship.
Have you just made that up, or is that something that is actually on the table?
I've heard that is a thing they are exploring, the idea. So whoever finishes first overall in the sprint championship will get 25 points or 10 points or however they want to decide that. So, maybe, who knows?
No, I wish they just
I think that's more interesting maybe than actually tying it into the race directly.
Yeah. I wish they just get rid of the sprint as it is and consider alternate types of events for certain places where the racing really doesn't work.
Agree.
Monaco, one of the best competitive sessions of the whole year is qualifying for Monaco. And I won't accept any argument against that. It's absolutely outstanding. The race, utter garbage. So my thought was make an aggregate system. Have your 2 practices on the Friday, and then Saturday and Sunday are 2 separate, each have 2 1-hour sessions with the cars going out in certain orders, and it's an aggregate time at the end. So it's all one big, massive, super tense qualifying session.
You would have a riot.
I know, but I think it would work. Or I can never remember the bleeding name of it, and someone in the chat always has to prompt me for it. I think it was World Touring Cars, they had an event where all the cars of the team went out doing flying laps, and they had to go as fast as possible, but also finish with the minimum gap between them as possible. Between the first and the third, they had 3 cars in a team. I'd love to see F1 try that. Not just who's fastest, but who can be the fastest together. It would be very interesting. If anyone can remember what that was called, please tell me.
Sorry, I can't get over yours, Stuart. I can't believe that's a serious proposal. Okay. I guess.
Yeah. I mean, and I totally see where Jonty's coming from as well. I think it's too bold for anyone to seriously suggest it. But
that's why I suggest it.
Yeah.
It's just a thought. I was thinking about this the other day. What we could do is we could have like on a Saturday, instead of the sprint, what we could do is we could come up with some kind of format where you could have like 3 separate little sessions, and you could have like at the end of each session the 5 or 6 cars with the slowest times get knocked out, and then you go again, and then the 5 or 6 cars get knocked out again, and then your top 10 shoot out for pole. You could just call it qualifying. That'd be brilliant on a Saturday.
Sounds good, but I think I could improve it by having the slowest driver be knocked out every 90 seconds.
Oh God, no, we're not doing that.
Did think about the possibilities of forgetting the ability to speak. Did think about the possibilities of even an elimination race. 20 laps. At the end of each lap, the car in last place pulls into the pits.
I mean, that is fun, especially where you can overtake.
Yeah.
But if you introduce that this year, what's the point in Haas leaving the garage? Bless them, they might as well not bother.
Well, you never know who's going to come together.
Yeah. Let's see what chat's saying. I don't know. I could come up with format ideas all day, but I'd always going to revert to what we have now, because I think the qualifying we have now is
it is the best we've ever had.
Best we've had, and I don't
think agree.
It needs...
Get rid of the Q2 rule and tyre rule, perfect.
Is that in the rules for next year now? That's in the rules, isn't it? They're getting rid of the Q2 tyre rule.
But I will defend the elimination qualifying in one way. All they had to do was make it so that you could finish the lap you were on. That was it. That would have fixed it perfectly. But they didn't.
I think it's... Yeah. I just don't think it's a thing that works well for qualifying. I think it works better for a race, just because there's not enough time to respond to being in the elimination zone. Anyway, that's in the past.
And I still want a race on an oval. I don't care what anyone says. I want to see 20 F1 cars going around in Indy, just to see what would happen. It's never been done. No one knows what would happen. I just want to see it.
I don't think they'll ever let them race against those barriers on an oval. I just don't think they'll let them do it.
No, they won't. I still want it.
I mean, if we're picking things we want, then a street race around Lincoln will do. I can film it from my window and broadcast it live, and then get told off by FOM. Yeah. Adam Osborne. I'm going to answer some questions now. Adam Osborne. Oh dear, we've got some ideas. Wants to know best battle of the race, and I'm not going to let you pick Hamilton versus Verstappen because that's too easy. I'm going to say. I don't know what I'm going to say. I haven't decided yet. I'm going to be a bit of a cop out and say Hamilton versus Perez. I liked that battle.
I'm trying to think of the other battles now.
I can't remember who was attacking, but I did enjoy Ocon trying to overtake someone, getting it a bit wrong, and then getting mugged by Alonso.
Okay.
Oh, crikey, it's 10 o'clock.
Yeah.
We're wrapping up, don't worry.
Uh,
How long have we been going? Considering for the last 20 minutes we've been talking silly things.
For a change.
8:15 we started.
Yeah, an hour and 54 minutes, including countdown. Not the game show.
I don't have a good one for the battle. So you want to build to another question?
Stroll and his carbon fibre, how about that? Keeping that car going. Bless him. Driver of the weekend, 25 places, still got P1. That's from 7 Overland. I did see a question, actually, about the final race and who's going to win the championship. I'm not going to make a call, Jay, on the final champion. We do that every week. But I will say that there seems to be the feeling, depending on what you read, that the next 3 races are actually going to suit Mercedes. But I take that with quite a big pinch of salt, because the thing is, Stuart, we've had a number of races this year that should have suited one team or the other and actually suited the other team. And we can all look at the tracks and say, well, that should suit Mercedes. That should suit Mercedes. But we've never been to Qatar. Jeddah's not even finished. We've never been there. And Abu Dhabi has had the tweaks, which makes it not a completely new track, but certainly adds an unknown element. So it's difficult to say they will suit Mercedes 100%.
Yeah, I've got almost nothing in terms of opinion on Qatar. Not Qatar, Jeddah, Abu Dhabi, Saudi Arabia. Goodness me. Whoa, I've got almost no opinion on Saudi Arabia. That's a real massive question mark. I still think Losail in Qatar just seems quite Red Bully. It's all very medium speed corners, which is kind of their territory. But Mercedes, particularly Hamilton, they've got like basically 2 quite young engines that they can use to their advantage, and could, possibly win there. I think there's, like you said, question marks over everything. There's a 14-point gap between them, and if Hamilton leads Verstappen home for the next 2 races, and their wingmen take the fastest lap point, as is the kind of thing that's been happening lately, then there'll be even Stevens on points going into the final race, and who doesn't want that? So I'm kind of hoping for that scenario, to be honest.
I just want a title decider. A proper title finale in Abu Dhabi with a slightly tweaked track. 2 drivers from different teams. 2 of the best... Well, no, not 2 of them. The 2 best drivers on the grid. Going toe-to-toe for the title. That's all I want in Abu Dhabi. And then, if nothing else, it makes Abu Dhabi interesting.
Yeah, I mean, I'd like it going into Abu Dhabi with the gap of 5 points or less to either driver, because then it's the literal winner takes all.
That'd be good. I like that.
Yeah,
definitely.
I mean, but you mentioning Qatar, I mean, my first automatic thought was, well, Lewis is going to have an advantage because he's far more experienced going to a brand new place. But then you realise that Max has been in the sport for 6 years.
Yeah, he's not a young guy anymore.
23, he's been in the sport for 6 years. That's insane.
I watched the 2003 Brazilian Grand Prix back this afternoon, and I looked at some of the drivers there. Kimi Räikkönen, I looked at him, and I think it was like 23 at the time or something like that, and they were talking about me in commentary, and I was just like, okay, Kimi's 40 now, but that makes me feel old. I'm younger than Kimi. Great race, by the way. If nobody's seen it, definitely go watch that one. That was a dramatic one. Bit of, I still think brain fade from Alonso at the end. Whether he got, I don't know if he got communication, but the yellow flags were there. Nasty one.
Yeah, but you mentioning going back to that, I just looked with mentioning Mr. Valentino Rossi earlier. 9 of the current F1 grid weren't born when he started his bike racing career.
Well, I'm off to buy some ice cream. Yeah. Thanks, Jonty. You've made my night. I'll read a couple of these questions out and I'll give an answer myself and then we'll wrap it up. Ben Gale says, thoughts on proposed London Grand Prix around the XL. Problem with the London Grand Prix, they've been talking about it for years, absolutely years, and it never seems to go anywhere. I'd be very surprised if we had a London Grand Prix, but then there are some tracks I'm surprised we've been on in the last 2 years because of COVID, so never say never. I'm surprised Imola's back and seems to be keeping a permanent spot, so you never say never with the London Grand Prix. I've not seen any drawings of it or anything or any mock-ups.
Oh, really? Have you not?
No.
If there was going to be a London Street Race Grand Prix, there would be one thing I would absolutely have to demand.
Tower Bridge with the bridge open.
Okay, a reasonable thing. Hyde Park Corner. Anyone who knows London will know Hyde Park Corner.
Absolutely not. You should be able to find a map of it. It's like around sort of East London. It goes around. Well, it goes past the Excel Centre. It's absolutely ludicrous. There's no chance in hell that's a street that's going to ever happen. And it looks like an appallingly boring track. The plus side is it's like 10 minutes walk from my house. So swings and roundabouts. Everyone round to mine the night before, and then we can all wander down. But apart from that, absolutely not going to happen.
Everyone round to yours. We all get
everyone in the chat.
Larry and drunk.
Yeah, we do the race reaction stream live from my living room.
With instead of a live chat, 1,000 people in an audience.
What we'll do is we'll have them out on the street and we'll just like do it out the window or like Beatles style from the roof.
That works.
Wow.
I'm sure the London Borough of Newham won't mind.
Well, according to Max, it says the Mail had an exclusive about it. So if that's, I assume the Daily Mail, then it's not happening. I'd take that with a lot more than a pinch of salt.
Yes, but there was a media outlet just last week insisting that I think it was Bournemouth.
Yes, Formula E.
for holding a Formula E race, and it was absolutely hilarious. The way they worded it was just pure gold.
Cited wants to know, is Haas capable of getting a point before the end of the season? They will need a chaotic race, so I'm going to say no. Unfortunately, I'd like them to, just one, but no, I don't think there'll be points for Haas this season.
Can we have a night race in Blackpool?
That'd be cold in July.
No, you have it in November.
Well,
it'd be cold, but think of the illuminations. That would be amazing.
Lights on and away you go. Oh, come on, I was proud of that. No. Thank you, Stuart. A couple more then. Max says his countdown a game show. Yes, it is. What about the oval-like circuit last year, says Isaac. Don't get me and Stuart started on that. That was not an oval-like. Goodness.
No, as we found out, it wasn't an oval, it was Ditto. The Pokemon.
I don't know what a Pokemon is, so.
Did you not see that meme going around?
I didn't see that meme. I mean, now that you mention it, I can see it.
You just fill it in purple, and it is a Ditto.
I saw the meme of Max Verstappen damaging cars today.
Yes.
That was very well done.
That was beautifully done.
What have we got? Daniel Philpott wants to come to Stuart's. We can sort that one out. 99% of modern F1. I didn't mean that to sound mildly threatening, by the way, Stuart. Sorry, I'm sending Philpott round.
Finally, for my crimes.
I've totally lost where I was now. Couple more, let's see. So 99% of modern F1 street tracks got it. F1 did have a promo session years ago at the bottom of Hyde Park. So there you go. Was that... Oh, they had F1 live in London. I went to that. Totally randomly, just decided one morning I was going for it. I think it was announced the night before. That was a great day. Enjoyed that one. If Alonso leaves at the end of 2022, Lewis will be the oldest driver, says Clansom. Thanks again, Clansom. Tired of it's the car argument. Valtteri has had a bunch of new engines this season, had trouble overtaking in traffic at other tracks. That's from Raz. Thank you very much, mate. I hate the it's the car argument because of course it is. It's the car and the driver. I'm going to say it, just to upset everybody now. If you put Bottas and Giovinazzi in that Mercedes, it's not winning a world championship this year. I'm sorry, but it's not. Merc have best party modes, says Darth. I think actually that's probably, they can crank up the engine a bit more, can't they, now that they've got that penalty they've taken this weekend? Could be where some of it's coming from, although Red Bull talking about a protest. We'll see. Don't know what that noise was. Why not? But yeah, there'll be a protest somewhere. It's a tight championship fight. There's bound to be, isn't there? I'd be amazed if we don't get one. And one more. A couple of people talk about double points. Don't you dare. Don't you dare. And Jamie Santos says Jeddah isn't even finished. Not as far as I know, but Michael Massey is confident it will be. So there you go.
I will say the most recent pictures are making me more optimistic about it. Like the main bits do look kind of done. So I think we'll have a track and a pits and all the bits you need. It'll probably look a bit rough around the edges, but apart from that,
it's more hospitality, the stuff they're lacking in.
Yeah, which is a shame, really, because I think that's something that the Middle East races have done really well previously, but they just don't have the time, do they, to put something 5-star together.
Yeah. Victor wants to know when I'm doing a "Why is Max Verstappen so hated" video. You've done one on Lewis. I'm not doing one on every driver.
No, but I think it's a valid driver to pick on. Not to pick on, I mean, to do that subject on.
Running series.
Yeah, but I've learnt my lesson from the first bloody one. I'm still having to deal with, quite frankly, the racism, and it is racism. It's not one of those, well, is it, isn't it? It's racist. Words are used in my hell for review, so I think I've learnt the lesson on that one. I don't really want a load of anti-Max Verstappen Dutch people in my comment section as well. It's hard enough when they breathe near each other in a chat and comment section without anything else. Maybe, who knows, I might get drunk one day and just do it and take the flak for it. Should we leave it there?
Yeah, probably.
Yeah, I think we should. We're talking nonsense. Yes, Josh, it is still live. I'm so sorry, mate. Go to bed. Thank you very much, Jonty. It's been a pleasure, mate. We've missed you, so it was nice to have you on again. 3 more of what we had today, please.
Yeah, absolutely. I want the Lewis Max 1-2 from the next 2 races with other people getting the fastest lap. Come on, let's have it dead level. Going to Abu Dhabi, please.
Don't. That'd be tasty. And thank you very much, Stuart, for your 3rd in a row. It's a pleasure as always. It's been good fun and plenty of waffle. I tell you what, actually, no, I'll tell you what I'm going to say to Stuart. At least we had something to bloody talk about this week. Last week was hard.
Absolutely. And actually, can I say, we've had, with all the controversy that's gone on this weekend, what a year and what a setup for the final 3 races we've got. How lucky we are to have this season and these 2 drivers pretty much neck and neck now.
Yeah.
On to the end. It's going to be great. Thanks.
Yeah, last 4 years, it's been sewn up by now. So
yeah, that's a good point. Good. Yeah. Anything's an improvement now. So yeah, but I'll let you two get off. But I'm sure I'll talk to you soon. Thank you very much again.
Yeah, thanks for having us on.
Ta-ra.
Bye.
Thank you to Jonty and to Stuart as well for that one. A little bit longer because we had something to talk about, which is always nice. Thank you to you guys for coming along as well. 590 likes. So if you're still here, Charles, you got your likes, mate. But a few more are always appreciated. So please do drop a like before you disappear. And don't forget to subscribe as well so you don't miss out on any future content streams and all of that business. I might be back on Tuesday. I've not decided yet. I kind of feel like I want to do a breaking news video for the Guan Yu Zhou news, the Alfa Romeo news, but at the same time, everyone sort of knows, so I feel like it's just a waste of a day. So I might just focus on the Qatar preview, which will be out on Thursday. And then, of course, we will be live with the race reaction for Qatar next Sunday. I think Dan's back with me for that one, so you'll get to hear Dan again. So sorry about that, but yeah, he'll be here. Again, just reiterate what I said last week. In terms of content, just going to be pretty much a case for this next week as well of just the preview and the race reaction. Got a funeral to go to, not next week after, so kind of just want to get that out of the way. And so I can start focusing on the channel again and clear my head and crack on. So lots more stuff coming in the future, I promise. All part of the Motorsport Network partnership as well, which I cannot wait to get into. But like I say, it's just next week. It'll probably be preview and the reaction and possibly an Alfa Romeo news stream, but I'll see how I feel on Tuesday. I might not bother. You guys all know. We've just told you what's happening. It's going to be Guan Yu Zhou. If it isn't and it's Stoffel Van Dorn, you bet your ass I'm live. If it's Stoffel Van Dorn in the Alfa Romeo, I am live for 6 hours on Tuesday. I don't care. That's a promise. It's not going to be Stoff. You can follow me over on social media. No idea where that was bloody going. Links in the description, as always. Links to Jonty's Linktree and Stuart's channel down there as well. Again, don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss out on any future content or streams. But as ever, thank you for watching. I've been Sean. This has been the F1 Word. And until next time, goodbye.